Hello, I'm Flora again, and thank you so much for joining me. A fun thing to do when I was early teenager was to get together with friends, take the bus down to a old, rather decrepit movie theater, not like the big ones uptown with their gilded pillars and velvet drapes. But this was a movie theater that every Saturday a teenager could get in to watch another Tarzan movie. This theater specialized in science fiction, mainly the early Tarzan movies. And I think you could get in for a quarter, maybe less, because back 90, 85 years ago, quarters bought actually quite a lot of things. But to tell the truth, I wasn't all that excited or impressed by Tarzan and Jane. Too white, too clean, too shaved, too combed, too well dressed, in spite of all the crocodiles and rogue elephants and cannibals that they were escaping from. I was more, well, shall we say, excited, a bit frightened by the science fiction the grown-ups were seeing. The first King Kong, for example, the early Jekyll and Hyde, the early Frankensteins. They seemed scarier, more complex. I didn't quite know why. It was not till the 1950s that I began to think about what these science fiction movies were all about, particularly there in the beginning around the mid-1950s, rose the genre of tremendous nuclear fueled monsters rising from the ocean, breathing fire in the cities, the effect of nuclear energy in ants and snakes, that kind of thing, dragons. All of this, of course, was obviously a terrible fear of what the nuclear age, the atomic bomb, I talked about that last week, could do to human beings, to our civilization. Of course, we still have the dragons with us, more so than ever. Those who watch the Game of Thrones, where dragons obviously are representing what human beings can do to each other with fire-breathing instruments or dragons. Anthropologists say, listen to the stories of the people when you're investigating new civilizations or different cultures. Listen to their stories, for their stories are symbols, icons, projections of the fears and longings, deep buried underlying anxieties, deeper perhaps than our conscious awareness of the communities, not just as individuals. I see that as the genre of science fiction expands in this day, I see those fears, projections again. For example, what human beings may do to each other. The science fiction movies of mad scientists, robots, another expression of artificial intelligence, nuclear wars, dystopian visions of life after the world is run by dictators, enemies sending plagues or cutting off all our electricity from one minute to another. Not only the fear of what we humans might do to each other, but the fears of the mysteries of the cosmos, nature, asteroids hitting us, sunstorms consuming us, giant waves overwhelming us, earthquakes, mammoth earthquakes, or killer birds, or human-eating fungus, carnivorous plants, zombies above all. Fascinating, the explosion of zombie movies in recent decades. Who are these zombies, I wonder? This fear of what the cosmos, nature, can do to us is our human vulnerability when we're surrounded with mystery. Listen to the stories of the people. Pay attention. Now, what triggered off my thinking along these lines was an article, I think a leading article in one of our nation's most respected, widely read newspapers, in which it said, America is no longer a stable nation. That word stable hit me hard. It brought up the memory of that movie. Some of you may have seen it, 2012. A perfectly ridiculous story, but fantastic special effects, with the idea that the Earth's molten core flares up, gets out of control, and the crust of the Earth on which humans live becomes destabilized. California breaks off and flows into the sea. Continents all over the world are breaking up, going under the sea. Also, the scene of the great ocean waves going over the Himalayas. Everything shaking. The magnetic poles go into reverse in this movie. Everything upside down, destabilized, shaking. I got a phone call the other day from a wonderful young woman who understands politics, and she said everything feels so unreal, so surreal, as if we're all standing in our heads. And I had to agree with her that we're experiencing a kind of national madness that I've not seen in my almost 97 years. It is surreal. Some examples of the science fiction feeling of our government. A president who has made Los Angeles an occupied city, breaking the law with sending in 4,700 military when the governor told him not to. It was not needed. That same president, who is the instigator of one of the worst riots we've had in history, sat back and enjoyed the show for hours. No calling in of the National Guard then. Surreal. An off-the-wall, unelected billionaire lopping off tens of thousands of federal jobs, claiming this increases the efficiency and lowers the costs of government. This same off-the-wall billionaire quoted as saying, "The weakness of the Western world, the Western civilization, is empathy as the great weakness of the Western world." Surreal. A Secretary of Health and Human Services firing the whole panel of specialized vaccination scientists in the name of this will restore people's faith in how the health is run in this country. And notice who he put in their places. Surreal. The head of the public diplomacy aspect of the State Department is a white supremacist quoted as saying, "You've got to get competent white men in charge if you want things to be run properly." Surreal. The head of the Department of Homeland Security watching yesterday as her bully boys forcibly thrust a United States senator asking a question out of the room wrestling him to the ground and handcuffing him. Like we're standing on our heads, the earth crust destabilizing, at least in the way we've experienced it up to now. You figure out for yourself, who are the zombies in this government? Who are the vampires? Who is the Godzilla or the Wolfman? Who's the Frankenstein? Or his monster? Who's the Jekyll and Hyde? But you see, it's much worse. These are not really monsters. They are twisted, wounded, ego-maddened men and women. They are more in the genre of perhaps the most frightening science fiction book and movie. Came out 50 years ago, I think, the movie, and the book, I think, more like 60 or more years ago. 1984, where human beings, as is expressed in the book, the ultimate vision, they say, of power is the boot stamping in a human face forever. In this nightmare type of scenario with which we're threatened, not altogether there yet, maybe never, but threatened. I'm thinking a lot of my father. He was born in 1892, and he lived to be 92. And he said, as I have always said, that on the whole, the nation is better than when he was born. He died in the 1980s, actually, in that fictional year, 1984. He said America had learned so much in his over 90 years, so many wonderful reforms, plenty of dangerous problems. He said we're perhaps more in danger, but we're a better nation. I agree with him. I've seen, and I've told you about it, recent talks, the wonderful changes I've seen in my lifetime. The danger is greater, but the awareness is greater. He was a realist, both in politics and history. He knew and understood what the worst can be like. He lived through the First World War, Second World War, of course, the Great Depression, the upheaval of the communist dictatorships. He knew all these things, but he said, when I asked him once as a girl, how would you feel if there was a third World War, you who've lived through two? And he said without a moment's hesitation, I would start to work to make sure we would not have a fourth World War. Never give up hope, he said. Never lose heart. Never surrender to fear. Keep reaching out to one another. Establish yourself firmly in community and family love. Witness to the truth and never stop witnessing no matter what happens. In fact, he would quote from that great prophet Isaiah of the scriptures, let your builders outdo your destroyers. Make sure your builders outdo your destroyers. And I share his wisdom with you today with all my heart. Thank you for being here. See you later.